Welcome to the Champs App podcast. Champs App is your recruiting and development co-pilot. If you are a player, parent, or coach, make sure to check out more content and tools to help navigate the world of youth hockey at champs.app. Also, if you've listened to the Champs App podcast in the past and it has helped you with your recruiting or hockey development, please tell your teammates and friends about Champs App. It would be even better if you subscribe to the podcast and review or rate us on whichever platform you're listening to or watching us on. On today's episode, we talk with Dan Koch, Associate Head Coach of the Wisconsin Badgers women's hockey team. We discuss how far women's hockey has come at Wisconsin since the program began, how the House Agreement and NIL impacts the team and managing their roster of 26 players. Dan also shares how Wisconsin recruits players and provides some excellent recruiting advice. This was an amazing conversation with Dan, so please enjoy. Tired of spending hours emailing coaches with no idea if they're even reading your messages? Champs App messaging is the fast, easy way to send personalized, error-free emails and know exactly when they've been opened. The coach's name, school, and email are automatically populated for you, so every message is accurate and complete. Choose from smart templates that pull your details directly from your Champs App profile, whether you're sharing your schedule or a new video. Cut your email time in half and finally see which teams are showing interest. One parent told us, what used to take a whole evening now takes under 2 hours. Champs App messaging. Faster, smarter recruiting. I'm delighted to welcome to the podcast Dan Koch, Associate Head Coach of the Wisconsin women's hockey team. Hailing from Madison, Wisconsin, Dan has been coaching hockey for almost 30 years, including high school hockey, Division III, and even a couple of years at Shattuck St. Mary's in the middle of his 22-year tenure at Wisconsin. While with the Badgers, the women's team has been the winningest program in D1 history, including 8 national championships. Welcome to the podcast, Dan.
Thank you very much, Ray.
Hey, so glad to have you on the podcast and having someone from Wisconsin back. As folks may know, Jackie Crum was on episode 13 many years ago, and she talked in detail about Wisconsin, about the actual academics and the school. So we're not going to get so much into that one, but let's start off first with your hockey background and how you started getting into hockey as a kid in Madison, Wisconsin.
Yeah, actually, I grew up in a small town about 15 miles west of Madison. At the time, it was really rural, back in the 70s, and now it's almost connected to Madison with all the growth of the city. But, hockey wasn't a part of my community where I grew up, but my dad worked at Oscar Myers at the plant in Madison, and a lot of the other people he worked with had kids getting involved in hockey, and so they convinced my dad after he got back from working all day to pick me up and drive me back because the rink was right next to Oscar Mayer, so it was about a 25-minute commute to work and back home, so 50-minute commute each way and then a 50-minute commute to take me to practice. But that's how I got involved. I was very fortunate to have some really good coaches when I was younger. From those first years, I still have some lifelong friends, and that really inspired me and helped me grow the love of the game just from those early years.
Let's get back to playing hockey in high school and where you took your hockey career.
Yeah, I think I continued to play for the east side of Madison. My family eventually moved to Madison when I started 6th grade, just because of the commute and everything. And then as I got into my high school years, I went to Madison La Follette, played there, and as I was kind of wrapping up high school, the Madison Capitals were getting going, and I was able to play some midgets with them. And then it came time, what was I going to do? I wasn't recruited. I actually got recruited for a couple schools to play soccer, but didn't quite have the ACT, SAT scores at those times to attend Dartmouth and some of the schools for soccer. But, my passion was I thought I was going to be a teacher and a coach. That's what I was really hoping to do. Like I said, a lot of my previous coaches, really helped me enjoy the game. And so that's the path I took. I applied to UW-Madison, got in, and got my elementary education degree. After I graduated, I started teaching up in La Crosse, Wisconsin, coaching boys high school up there. And I thought, wow, I've made it. I was in my mid 20s and I felt like I was starting to do what I was planning to do. And I was really excited by it. And then I started my master's at St. Mary's University in Winona, Minnesota, after my second or third year of teaching. Fortunately, the woman in charge of the master's program, her husband, Jeff Visner was his name, was the head coach of St. Mary's women's hockey. And he just happened to need an assistant. So I helped him out for a while. We had some success there. And then he moved on to Madison for 1 year. And I was still working on my master's. I just had a 6-month-old baby. And so I was fortunate enough to bring in the person that was my assistant coach at La Crosse to come be the head coach at St. Mary's. So after another year there, Jeff left um, Wisconsin and went to Mankato, became the head coach at Mankato, and then he recommended me to replace him at Wisconsin. So that's a long story, but that's how I ended up getting to Madison.
Oh wow. Okay. Now it all makes sense. And this is back in, when we do the math, in the mid '90s. I'm assuming that's when you
Yeah,
came
mid
back. Yeah.
'90s. Mid '90s was the high school team, and then late '90s was St. Mary's, and then 2001 came to Madison.
All right. So, what was the women's hockey team like back when you joined Wisconsin? So I know things have changed dramatically. So, Karen Rickard, who was one of those early players on the team, who now runs Team Colorado, but when she started, she told me that there were no dedicated women's hockey locker rooms at the rink at Wisconsin at that point. So maybe just give some people some context, because the Wisconsin women's hockey program that you see today was not the same team that you saw back in 2000.
Yeah, I have to be careful because I'm still good friends with a lot of those first year players. Actually, Jackie was a freshman my first year, and that's how I ended up meeting her. Obviously, Karen, I think, was a sophomore my first year there, and Sis Paulson, a lot of them, Carrie Weiland, uh, just a lot of good members that have been very successful. Molly Angstrom, Megan Hunter, but yeah, the setup we had was very different. We're very fortunate, and if you look at it, it seems like a long time, but we went from, now it's been, 25 years almost. Uh, our first locker room was actually a visiting football locker room in Camp Randall Stadium. The girls would put on skate guards. We'd have to walk across an alley and go into it was called the Shell. It was owned by the rec department and at UW. It wasn't owned by the athletic department at that time. And so they would have intramurals in that rink and different things like that. And some local teams would practice there. But, we would walk in skate guards and practice. And then on the weekends, we would play our games, in surrounding community arenas. Sometimes they went to where the men used to play out at the Coliseum, now the Alliant Energy Center. After a year of that, they did build us a locker room where that practice rink was. And at that time, the Kohl Center was getting finished. And so we would start to play some of our games down at the Kohl Center. But, for our players, mostly for our equipment manager and director of ops at that time, it felt like we had 34 home or away games because they would have to transfer everything from the practice rink down to the Kohl Center. So, you know, and then after about 13 years of that, we ended up getting Leavon Arena. So, it's really progressed over those 25 years to, walking across and skate cards, being in a visiting team's football locker room, to having our own arena that has, all the bells and whistles and just a lot of things attached to it that make it a lot easier for our athletes.
So, what was the key to getting to that point where you got your own arena? What was it that the school saw that said, "Hey, it's really worth investing in this program and obviously attracting great players, from a very early stage."
Yeah, I think a few things. Obviously, our success helped. Winning in 2006, 7, 9. That helped get the ball rolling. It also, the men would have to practice off campus as well at the Alliant Energy Center. And so I think in some aspects, that was hurting their recruiting. So they needed a place on campus. And then, between Mark, Barry Alvarez at the time, and some other administrators, they got the ball rolling working with the state and started to get some funding to try to build a rink attached to the Kohl Center.
Got it. All right. And so obviously the men's and the women's teams practice at Leavon, but only the women's actually play their games at Leavon. Is that correct?
Yeah, that's correct. During COVID, the boys played their games in Leavon. But other than that, since then, they've always been in the Kohl Center.
Ready to see how you stack up against future Division One players? Champs IQ gives you an unbiased look at your potential. Just submit at least 10 minutes of your edited shifts, and our expert scouts will provide an objective, data-driven analysis of your game. We'll evaluate you on more than 15 skills, giving you both an overall rating and a clear trajectory for your Division One potential. You'll know exactly where you stand and what you need to do to improve. Learn more at www.champs.app. And what makes your coaching staff, so I'm including Mark Johnson and Jackie and yourself, what makes you such a great team as a coaching staff? Why have you had so much success?
A lot of reasons. I think one, our consistency of being together. Like I mentioned early on, Jackie was a freshman my first year. Mark came the year after that. So we've known each other for 20 years, 20 plus years. And I think all of our backgrounds were in education. I was an elementary ed major. Mark and Jackie were kinesiology majors with the intent to go on to teach PE and things like that. And so, when we look at our coaching style, we just really enjoy teaching the game and trying to work with, new generations to help them reach their goals. And I think the one thing they pick up from us is our passion and energy. Even as we get older, we still continue to have that drive. We still have that competitiveness, and we really want to help, our players achieve their goals both on the ice and in the classroom.
Gotcha. And what's really impressive is that, how long you've all stayed together. So I'm just curious, how and why were you able to do this? Because I'm assuming that, both you and Jackie have had opportunities to be head coaches elsewhere. You've had opportunities to leave Madison for, I'm sure, potentially bigger opportunities. Why is it that you've all been able to stay together for such a long period of time?
Yeah, one, I would say when we've had those opportunities, Mark's always been very convincing and trying to keep us and persuade us. Uh, but, when you really look into it, it's hard to find another place that gets treated by their administration as well as we do and by our community. I think we're very unique in that, the Badgers don't have any professional teams that they're competing against in Madison. And so when we go to um, the local hospital, the children's hospital, or Ronald McDonald House, or schools, um, other activities, the community really gets excited by Badgers coming in. And so that's how grow our fan base. The support of our community is just huge. And then, as I shared, just the story about Leavon being built, and the things that we have that make our life easier for our athletes. When you start to look around at other places, sometimes the money might be better and things like that, but um, in general, it's just the administration puts a lot of effort and a lot of funding and everything into it. And so it's hard to compare it to anywhere else. And just the feeling of, that support and having that community support, makes it unique in my eyes.
Gotcha. And I'm curious, the NCAA has allowed hockey to have a third assistant coach. I'm curious, how come you folks haven't added a third coach since that's been possible? Because clearly, funding it would not be an issue for your school.
Yeah, they've have increased, some of the salary and stuff for some of our support staff. And so some people have picked up some extra roles and responsibilities. So Even though we don't have that listed, in the program or on the website. I think our university has tried to support us by increasing roles of some of our support staff.
Gotcha. So you're not planning to add a third assistant coach at some point, like some of the other schools are, to help even with just recruiting and keeping you at home for games instead of traveling on week to for other recruiting events.
Yeah, eventually maybe it might happen and things like that, but right now we're still able to do what we need to do and get things done. So, we're very content with the way things are going.
Gotcha. Okay. One last question about Leavon Arena. What makes it such a hard place to play? So obviously you talked about some of the community support, but what I've heard from players who've gone as visiting players is the crowd likes to get engaged with the players from the other team. Maybe just talk about how intimidating playing at Leavon is for opposing teams.
Yeah, obviously a couple of our early home series this year have been sold out already. I mean, we've been fortunate with the first one raising the banner, so that was a big event. And then obviously with Duluth coming in, a top four team, our fans really want to come in and see some good quality hockey, so they knew they were going to see that. Um, the opponents know they're going to come in and there's going to be 2,500 or more people in there. Um, they're loud, they have their chants. Uh, I mean, I tell people this and they don't believe it until they see it, but like on Saturday when we played at 11, 8 o'clock, people were waiting outside the doors. I don't know why. A lot of it is general admission, but they're superstitious. They want to get their seats. And so, that just tells you how passionate they are that they're going to wait 3 hours prior, to the game outside the doors because we don't open up until an hour before. So they're sitting there 2 hours outside. And, it was 85 degrees against Maine. So not a lot of shade out there either.
Yeah,
Um,
not a great
and
place to also do some tailgating. That's just how it's set up. It's there's no
yeah,
parking
yeah, they
immediately
they have
available.
a lot 91 is right over to the right of the Kohl Center. So we have a group of parents and a group of fans that support our program well that I think they're on a text chain or an email chain, and so someone's in charge of putting that together every week. And so when I go on to social media, I see them at their meeting spots, and even on the road they're doing that. But back to Leavon, I would say we're starting to get some of the students from the dorms that are near Leavon that are coming, and so obviously when you're selling beverages and different things now, that's bringing in some other people, and so it's nice to see the students coming in from the dorms. Leavon's just it's a little bit bigger than NHL size. um, and I think with our style of play, that plays to our advantage, trying to play fast and things like that. So it might take a little few minutes or a period or two for other teams to adapt. Um, but yeah, there's a lot of reasons, but I think, the number one reason is just the quality of players that we're putting out there to face our opponents.
Gotcha. So, continuing on kind of the theme of the evolution of women's hockey, how has the PWHL impacted, your recruiting and your player development as how you think about, managing your team?
Oh, definitely. I think you see it, from the recruits themselves. They want to know um, how you're going to help them, reach the PWHL. So, fortunately, we have the graphics up there of all the PWHL teams and what former Badgers and are currently playing for those teams, and people can see the numbers. That we put, if not the top, one of the top college programs, with the most PWHL players. But uh, so they want to know how we're going to help them get to those areas and get up to that level. And so, we go through the different things that we're able to do at Wisconsin, whether it's with video, whether it's with extra skill sessions, having your own rink in your own facility. The ice is available a lot. So if the girls do not have or have class and the men are not practicing, we can use the ice pretty much anytime we want. And then we go into, we also have a shooting room. So if the ice is ever out, uh, the girls can go in there, and so the boys can also use it. And it's got stick handling activities in there, and obviously, I think it's a sure shot, that passes the pucks out, and can have a little competition with your teammates and things like that. So, um, there's a lot of things in play. So, I mean, the PWHL hasn't helped us with recruiting at all. But I think, maybe in the stance that the view, if you see the number of players that have played at Wisconsin and moved on to that level, we must be doing something correct.
Got it. Okay. Now, the world of all overall college athletics has been changing dramatically, especially in the last year or so. Obviously, all the Big Ten schools opted um, into the agreement. And I'm just curious what you're able to share about the House settlement and what the impact is on scholarships for the women's hockey team, and maybe other elements of that it's impacted the team.
Yeah, at Wisconsin, it hasn't impacted us, too much. So the way it worked is if you opted in to the settlement, you had to provide revenue sharing. Each school's different on what they want to do with that revenue sharing. So this year it was 21.5 million, and the athletic department could decide how they were going to distribute that. Um, if And it also increased if you opted into it, then that set your roster size. So with us opting into it, that we had to agree to that we were going to have 26 players on our roster, and if you were going to get extra scholarships, so right now most teams are allowed 18 scholarships. If you got a 19th scholarship, that would have been part of that 21.5 million revenue sharing.
Ah, okay. I didn't realize that they tied actually the revenue sharing to scholarships. I thought they may have been separate elements.
Right, right. Yeah, no, they did. So if they were going to give us a 19th, 20th scholarship, that would have been part of that revenue.
Got it. All right. And how has NIL, name, image, and likeness, also impacted your team? I mean, you got some high profile players that could definitely be selling jerseys and things like that. So I'm just curious, how you think about that as part of your recruiting and just managing the team.
Yeah, obviously, a lot of the players now that you look at the Olympic level players and people that hope to go into PWHL, they're starting to get agents sooner, and a lot of them are using their agents to get the NIL deals, which is great. We do have in a department, in our administration that helps players that want to. Um, Try to look for NIL deals, but really as a coaching staff, we're not out there knocking on doors and businesses and saying, "Hey, can you provide some money? Provide some money." Um, if Mark has always said, if we're going to get NIL or get donations, we're going to use it for education. We're going to use it to help maybe someone that's on a partial or a walk on. Um, there's enough things set up between agents and our administration and the Department of NIL where girls can go get the extra stuff if they need to get a new computer or um, get something to help get a flight home or things like that. But if we're getting any donations that's coming specifically to Wisconsin, we're going to use that to try to help. Use it towards education to try to help some of those kids that aren't on full scholarships.
Got it. And so it's not necessarily player specific. If it is, they handle that on their own. Is that what you're
Pretty
saying?
much, yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Got it. All right. So you mentioned you have 26 players on your roster. I'm curious, at least at this time of year, how do you keep everybody happy? Because I know there's at least a few players that haven't seen ice time yet. How do you manage that? And now I know down the line when the Olympics come, you're going to lose some players. We'll talk a little bit more about that in a moment. But how do you manage a roster size of 26 when all of them are top players in the country, and for basically at almost every other school would be probably on the first line, and now they're sitting in the stands.
Yeah, we had meetings right away, Mark. Tried to approach this, with a head-on and just have discussions about it, because this is a new territory for all of us. New for the coaches, new for the players. And so, we have a plan. Some players that we talk to may come in red shirt. And so even if you're red shirting, that's part of the roster. You're still part of the roster. Um, and again, we've never been through this situation before in all the past history. Olympic players, would take a red shirt year, they'd be centralized and they wouldn't be with us. And so, we just talked about this with our team and about, how it's going to be new and how we can handle it. Like we can decide to, you know, um, continue to be supportive and continue to be good teammates and uh, continue to do things for the reasons we want to do it, and it's all for the team. Can't be about us. So yeah, there's some awkward moments. There's some awkward timing, especially like last week when the players were gone for a week of practice with their national teams, and then they came back for games. And so it's a lot of managing for us as far as number one, trying to make sure players have energy, um, making sure they're when they do come back from those programs, uh, they have a time to rest and to recover. It's a lot of dialogue and communication with the players that might get to play, uh, while those players are absent, and then help them, recognize, okay, this is the situation we're in. And I give a lot of credit to Mark for going at this, directly, and a lot of credit to our players for being patient with it, understanding we're there to try to help them, that this is new to us too. And, uh, there's with any seasons, there are up and downs and adversity, and this is just some adversity that we've tried to get out in front of. And it's, it hasn't been perfect, but I think everybody has a lot of respect for one another and the way we're trying to handle it. So yeah, it's not ideal, but it's the hand we've been dealt.
Yeah, and at the time you were recruiting the class of 2025, you didn't know if there was going to be centralization or not, and obviously there hasn't been. So you may have lost 4 or 5, maybe 6 players for the whole season, and you may have only had a roster of 20, and maybe needed to use the transfer portal more this past summer. I mean, it's an awkward dynamic, especially for your team with so many Olympians on the team.
Yeah, yeah, and we were fortunate too because we were planning that. So when the house settlement came, and they said we needed to have 26, we knew already, because we thought these girls would be centralized, that we had a little bigger class this year. And so it kind of worked out where we weren't scrambling at the end. We had the players that we wanted. They had committed, and it may have changed our conversation later with them. As they got into school about, okay, maybe um, this is what playing time would look like this year for you. If you want, do you want us to try to protect a redshirt season for you? So, but yeah, we were fortunate enough with the health sentiment, knowing that we thought these girls might be centralized, that we had a little bit bigger recruiting class.
And are you concerned that if you have, let's just say, 6 players, because it's very likely you have at least 6 players go to the Olympics, that your actually roster is going to be a little challenging for 3 weekends while they're away in Milan in February?
Yeah, yeah, definitely. But it's a great opportunity for these other players. The key will be staying healthy. But the girls that are going to be here with us, they're excited for that opportunity. Uh, and again, like I mentioned last week, when those national team girls were gone for the week, we were able to put certain lines together and see what different combinations looked like. And there was a lot of energy, from those girls. And so, um, we're going to have some challenging games, but I think our players will be ready to compete.
Yeah, and of course you'll be playing Ohio State during one of those weekends when in February. So it'll be interesting to see what both those rosters will look like when the Olympics are around, and see how they compare to the regular season rosters. A couple of questions for you. Layla Edwards is playing D right now. Is the reason why she's been playing D this year, even though she was the leading goal scorer in all NCAA last year, in preparation of the Olympics? Because I know she's played D at some U.S. national events.
Yeah, USA moved her back to D starting about, 9 months ago or so, a year ago. And so, um, we thought, we're always trying to figure out what's the best way to help our team. So she's played forward 1 game, she's played D 3 games, um, or 5 games. And um, what that does is it gives some of those extra forwards more opportunities early in this year. So, we wanted to see, what some of our younger forwards could do. Um, we really like our decor. Obviously, we have our 5 returners that helped us win the last year's national championship all back. And you throw Layla back there, and it gives us 3 really strong pairs. So, um, Layla's been great. She wants to help the team win, and so, um, she's been just continuing to work at both areas of her game, and she'll do pretty much. She's going to go out there and compete wherever we put her. We haven't tried goalie yet, and we don't know if that's going to be a chance, but probably not.
But you have added her as a social media star because she seems to be in a lot of your clips ahead of your games with some social media marketing for upcoming games. So,
Okay,
um,
okay.
so let's move more into the recruiting side of things. You have 9 players leaving with big names like Layla, Caroline Harvey, Lacey Eden, Kristen Sims, who are going to be graduating. And I believe you still have some spots based on my math on, you haven't filled all 9 of those spots. Is the plan just to fill all 9 spots? Are you going to use the transfer portal? What's the plan, of losing all these stars and how you're going to replace them?
Yeah, well, we got, like I mentioned, some of our incoming players this year. If we stay healthy, we'll probably redshirt. But they've been out practicing, they've been out doing a lot of skills. So I think they're going to be, it's almost like, going to juniors or a gap year. I think they're not going to be, obviously they're going to have a year under their belt of practicing with us, but, they're going to help fill those roles. We like our, 26 recruiting class. We like our 27 commits. If you look at your history, we're not huge with the portal. We like developing our players and trying to uh, get the type of players we want to get that we think are going to help our locker room and our play on the ice and things like that. So, I think there's a few commitments that haven't stated anything yet, but we're close. We're not worried about the numbers or anything of reaching that 26.
Got it. Okay, so I've been watching Wisconsin for several years since I started learning about women's ice hockey and the college recruiting. And my sense is, Wisconsin recruits its own way, different from anybody else. I'm not sure you're recruiting the absolute best of the best. But it more seems like you're recruiting the best of the best for Wisconsin, because I can think of players from each recruiting class that I followed that may have had a bit more talent, but based on what I know about their personalities, may not be the right fit for Wisconsin. Maybe just talk about, what is your recruiting philosophy and what it takes to kind of get an offer from Wisconsin, not just based on how you play.
Yeah, I mean, I think probably a lot of coaches are going to share the same thing, not just with hockey, but with any sport. But character goes a long way. We talk a lot to coaches. We talk a lot to teammates and different things like that to try to get a sense of what these players are like off the ice. We look a lot, when we're recruiting at body language and things like that. If they have a bad shift or they let in a bad goal, what's their body language like? Um, and then, so, you want to create you want to recruit good people. It just creates a better atmosphere in the locker room. It makes your job as a coach easier. Um, and so that's, one of the top things we're looking at. And the other thing is just work habits. If you're a good character and you have strong work habits, we can work with that. We can, you may not be the elite of the elite, but we think we can come up with some strategies and techniques and help you develop. So you're able to compete every day and go against anyone, in the country. So, those are some of the things that we try to focus on. As you mentioned, we may be unique. We don't feel like we have certain pods that we go after. You can be from British Columbia, you can be from Czech, you can be from Minnesota, um, just all over. If you look at our roster and you see where everybody's from, there's just not one area that we continue to hit. So, we're all out there trying to identify players who we think are top players. And then once we think they're a top player, we try to find more about their work habits, more about their character, about their education and their schooling. And, if all those come together, then we think we have a pretty good player.
Gotcha. So, why would a player who has a choice between picking between the top two programs, let's say the two teams that have been meeting in the finals the last few years, pick one over the other? Because it seems the culture of these programs are very different.
Yeah, I don't really know. You'd have to ask the players. Obviously I'm biased to our program, but I think our opponents do a great job too of selling what they have and you know sharing what they can provide. I think we're unique in what I was sharing kind of earlier, as far as the Badgers are the big hit in town. So if we can get somebody on campus, we can get them to an event. Um, you know, we can take them to the farmers market on a Saturday, and we can take them down to the Union Terrace and over to State Street and go to a men's game or a women's volleyball game or a soccer game. They get to see the support around the Badgers, and I think that kind of resonates with a lot of the families and a lot of the players that we bring in.
Gotcha. All right. So now, not all your players are actually like under 18 players who made the under 18 team, whether it's in Canada, the US, or international. You're open to just looking at the best players that are the right for Wisconsin. So I'm just curious, like, what are those attributes that once again, even though you may not be, the top USA hockey prospect that you're looking for, that you see in those players? Is it just potential and coachability?
Oh, definitely. Yeah, I think too, if you look at some of those players, they still have a lot of tools in their toolbox. They may not have all of them, but they have some that we feel like their ceiling, they haven't reached their ceiling, that they still have a area of growth. Number one, they do have the work habits that they do want to get better. They recognize that they have to get better on certain things, and then they kind of have that competitiveness in them, is like, I want to prove people wrong. And when you get that type of attitude and those work habits, you can go a long ways with those players. And as long as they stay healthy, I think we've had a lot of success by developing those type of players. And maybe not in their first or second year, but then they come really good third year, 4 year players that play important roles for us.
Perfect. All right, last question for you. Unless you're born in Columbus, Ohio, probably Wisconsin is on everybody's top list of places that they want to play if you're a female hockey player who wants to play Division One. So you must be getting hundreds, if not literally thousands, of emails from players saying, "Hey, I'm really interested in Wisconsin. It's my top choice." What advice do you have for all these players who are reaching out to you about being realistic about of their recruiting chances with Wisconsin? Because, like I said, while you may not be picking the absolute best of the best players, it's a very narrow group of players that you're really looking at.
Yeah, I would say, continue to send the emails. I mean, I've learned from doing this for so long. I mean, one of my favorite things about this job is meeting the people, even the ones that don't, and the families and the players that even don't come to Wisconsin. Whether I'm working at a camp or recruiting somewhere or coaching, a team somewhere else, and getting to know these families. And obviously, I can't bring them all to Wisconsin, and so um, I would just encourage them, don't give up on your dreams. Whether it's, Minnesota, Wisconsin, Cornell, Clarkson, Ohio State, uh, stay vigilant in what you want to do. Stay active. If that's where you want to go, continue with the emails and send your schedules and show your passion that that's what you want to do. Even now, there's so many players that didn't play for me that I've become really good friends with, help them with their coaching careers, work camps with them, work clinics with them. And I think, this hockey community is a great community and it's such a small community. Um, and even though they may have scored an overtime winner against me or something like that, or my team, that's years ago. And so it's just great to have these friendships. But for that younger athlete that, their goal is to get to one of the top programs, continue to show your passion. And then, just there's nothing wrong with the emails. One thing that we try to do is reply to as many as we can. Obviously, they have to be old enough before we can reply. But, I think Jackie, I, and Mark, you never know what's going to happen in this business, especially with the transfer portal and things like that. So we try to be respectful to all the emails and people that approach us.
Perfect. All right, Dan, you got a big weekend ahead of you in Schenectady. By the time this comes out, the games will be done, but you're opening up the building at Union. So I just want to wish you good luck this weekend and best of luck with the whole season and managing the whole roster during an Olympic year.
Thank you very much, Ray, for having me, and appreciate the time we shared.
I really want to thank Dan for coming on the podcast. He had some great insights into the dynamics of women's college hockey, playing at Wisconsin, and some excellent recruiting advice.